Hello and welcome to the Empowered Couples Podcast, where here you get modern, non-boring relationship advice for you and your partner to communicate like pros, fight smarter, and stay on the same team no matter the challenge that you face. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman.
And I'm Jocelyn Freeman, but you all just know us as the Freemans.
And this episode is about the 5 vital elements for sustaining love throughout the years, trials, and seasons of life.
And speaking of sustaining love, right before this, you should have heard us, because I'm amazed sometimes that Aaron still loves me. I'm like warming up going, me, oh my, trying to get my vocal cords. I might sound weird to you all. I sound weird to myself. Something is like my vocal cords are tired or something. So I know I might sound a little off, but you still love me, right?
I do, primarily because we're focused on these 5 vital elements.
Yes.
So it's funny you bring that up because that's how I wanted to actually start. For you, the listener, love can seem like such a simple thing. When you're falling in love with someone in the beginning, it's the simple but all-consuming, like, I'm just in love, right? It's like, and you can't really describe it, which brings you more to the complexity of it. Because if you were to say why or what's bringing that about, you can get into a lot of different subjects of why you might love someone. And I think the fact that you would get so many answers from people kind of shows us that maybe it's too big for us to understand sometimes,
It's hard to describe
or we
love.
don't actually know. Maybe it's chemistry, which is a part of where we're going to go here today. But that's kind of the point, Certainly in the beginning, you can feel like this more love for a person. And then as you're married and together over the years, we hear from many people, a couple of things actually, that love starts to fade, or that I love this person. And if you're in a challenging season, how many times we heard, well, I love my partner and, or but, there's a whole other thing in there. I'm not sure they like me. I'm not sure what's exactly keeping us together. I love this person. So it's like,
But I just don't feel it as much.
Yeah. How do you rectify that? How can you say, I love this person and yet feel as if maybe you're not meant to be together, right? If you've gone through a lot. But either way, there is 5 vital elements we want to cover here today so that you realize it's not just one thing. And many people talk about a mature love over time. Love can actually feel like it takes a different form. So we want to bring it all together so that no matter the years, the trials, the seasons that you go through as a couple, you can sustain, build upon, and deepen the love that you have.
Well said. And before we get into these 5 vital elements, it actually made me think, when you were describing that, of a comment that someone put on one of our posts on Instagram. And they said, Freemans, I'm so glad you're covering some of these topics, because I was starting to question if something was right or wrong because I don't have those same butterflies. Right. And they were, and I can relate to that because I used to think that, love is just that intoxicating feeling in the beginning. And look, when we're in the middle of a hard day or a hard week, am I bursting with like, come to me, baby love? No, it's
Come
different.
to me, baby love.
Come to me.
It's not the name of one of the vital ones,
No.
but I do like it.
Right. But my point is, it's all about maturity. You're so right. It really is about this mature love that is sustainable. That's why I'm so glad our title has that word, right? That is not, exhausted in the beginning, or that it's just in the highlight moments when you're having a great day and you're excited. No, it's sustainable. It's sustainable throughout decades together. It's sustainable through hardships, through, challenging seasons. You and I, we are so different this year and the last year than we were 5 years ago. And yet I love you in such a different, more profound and deeper way.
Yeah. And I hope that resonates for you listening. I also want to underscore that we're not saying this mature love is boring.
No.
So we want to keep that in mind. I want to just jump right to it. Let me give all 5 of these vital elements. Normally, we wouldn't be revealing the whole podcast, but I do want to put them all out there, and then we can go into each of them. So the 5 vital elements: passion and desire, friendship, safety and trust, shared experience, and commitment. And these are really just from our conversations. They're from our contemplations and all the work that we've been doing.
Studying, researching, yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say this is necessarily scientific or like research for years and years. I mean, you got stuff out there that's the 7 words of, love in Latin, and you have all that stuff. But I wanted to get down to the real way that we see it in practical day-to-day marriage and love.
So I was debating with you on this first one. You put passion and desire first, and I was like, no, we can't do that one first because we're not even feeling like a crazy amount of passion and desire in this season, right? Our baby is 14 months old. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have moments of passion and desire. Like, I think that's something we set our focus on, right? When we invite each other into the intimate space, for example, but we're not walking around like, I'm all cute in heels. Like maybe in the beginning I dressed up a little more and, we were lighting candles.
We have had that
and
conversation.
Went on dates and, right, like the passion and desire was different in the beginning. And I know that in covering this one as the first, a lot of you who are in kind of the season of life that's maybe focused on kids or career, or you've been together a certain number of years, and it's like, okay, we don't experience burning passion and desire at all times. So Freeman's, does that mean something's wrong then with our version of love?
Well, let's talk more about this one before we get into answering that question. I see this as chronological, really. So it's not about importance, but I think this is the progression that someone comes across. Because passion and desire is the easiest one. It's the one that most people associate with the feeling of love. It's really what brings you together initially for most people. It's attraction, it's chemistry, it's physical sex, it's that burning fire, towards another person, the passion, the desire. And yes, it is usually the one that people are experiencing first to even like start down a relationship. And if you think about this, that isn't what always has a relationship continue to progress.
That's true.
You can have passion and desire, and you could say that that's love. We're not saying that's not love, but it starts to become obvious that there must be more. Because how many other people in your life previous to your partner have you had passion or desire for, and then you're not in a relationship or married to them now? So I think the mistake... then we can just move on because people are pretty familiar with passion and desire, I would say. The mistake is to associate love, the feeling of what love is, to this one area. And this is one that does fade. Like as you're together over the years, it does kind of start to fade over time. And it needs a high level of effort and intention.
I was going to say that, yep.
Towards making sure that passion, desire has variety, spontaneity, and freshness to keep it alive.
I'm so glad you said that because I was going to jump in on that. Because
now's your time.
It doesn't mean that it can't exist. So a while back, we shared, this was back in 2022, that we went to an intimacy workshop in Hawaii, and then we had continued doing some work with that leader. And that's a way that we brought intention to passion and desire. So we can create it with each other, right? When we invite each other into that intimate space, it's just different. Like you said, it takes a different amount of effort and intention. So,
yeah, and I don't want to spend too much time on here. Yeah. This is the obvious one, but I think there's a mistake there to associate this with love. Only,
for sure.
Okay, so second one.
Yeah.
Now we really start to get into it, right?
I want to go into this one.
Is friendship.
Friendship. You're my best friend.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that. When I was contemplating on friendship, I also came up with the words companionship, which I think is something I've heard people that are, just say older, I think that's fine to say that, that are older tend to want more of a companionship out of a relationship, especially those that have maybe had their partner pass away and you get later on in your years. I think companionship becomes one of the actually strongest things.
Yeah, that's true.
Like you're not even as interested in passion and desire as you are companionship. So this friendship, the companionship, partnership, I added, it's a certain laughter, it's humor. It's also about being respectful to me and being, I'm going to give you a lot and then you can just jump in. It's about being respectful. It's also about being relatively on the same level of development. Now, I know I'm putting a lot, so segment what you want to fill us in on. But development on your intellect, your emotional intelligence, maybe spiritually, so that there's an equal give and take and balance of like lovingly challenging each other to grow.
Yeah.
So if you put all that together, a lot of the friends in your life do that for you. You have a mutual respect. You're at the same level, like you're peer to peer. You're not like a mentor or a mentee. You're at an equal level, and then you can kind of challenge each other in a loving way, to grow. But there's that mutual respect, and that's what kind of creates a strong friendship with anyone outside of your relationship. And you need to maintain, I think, all those things for that to flourish. So bring that back into your romantic relationship, your marriage now. I think it's such an important thing to maintain in this longevity for a strong and healthy marriage.
When I think about our relationship, friendship is like one I have felt throughout all time, right? Like I just feel like we're always, but we even say that to each other sometimes, like you're my best friend. It doesn't mean we don't argue, you guys, or we don't have our hard days. Make sure that that's clear. But I feel like we can confide in each other. We can open up and not receive like harshness back or always a coach. Sometimes I do have to tell you like, hey, please stop coaching me, because sometimes you are in more of like a coach mode than my friend or my husband. But we can confide in each other. We can open up, and we also, like you said, have those moments of just laughter and joy and can just be with each other, like just spending time with each other. So I think friendship is a really big one for people to focus on. I notice with the couples that we work with is that they've lost sight of being friends. They really focus a lot on managing the household, the to-dos, the running errands, the paying the bills, the taking care of kids, right? They're managing life. And I don't see people enough like just get on the, ground or go to coffee. When I say the ground, I mean like if you have a baby. You're like, why are you
I knew what you
meant.
And then I was thinking like, I wonder if people know why'd they get on the ground? What does that have to do with friendship?
Getting on the ground.
Going on a picnic?
Right, with your kids, or go to a cafe or go on a hike and just open up to each other. Just be friends, confide, listen, laugh, and have that friendship.
I was wondering if you were going to anchor to the one other thing I mentioned. I did say a lot. Respect.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that is a place that couples start to lose the friendship aspect of love. And this isn't a podcast about respect. There's a love and respect cycle, but for various reasons, as that respect starts to go out, obviously you give less love as you feel disrespected, and then you have that cycle. And I think that is what starts to diminish the friendship. If you start to lose respect in another friend of yours in your life, then that friendship wouldn't have the same bond. And I want to underscore that as maybe a big takeaway from this whole podcast is this friendship element and looking at the level of respect that you both have for each other.
That's huge. Let's go into the third part of this. Aaron, you want to go into this one?
Yeah, it's safety and trust. And as I was also contemplating on this one, there's a number of things. So I'll just throw it all out there and then you can field it back. It's being count-onable and being trustworthy. It's being your word. What I actually didn't have in here was like integrity, having each other's back. And for women, I know it's a feeling of being protected and secure. So along with this is that security in finances and security, I would say, in emotions, being vulnerable. Also supporting each other's individual growth and passions in life kind of, for me, rounded out safety and trust.
Yeah, definitely. There's an element of us a big part of us, we are primal creatures, right? Like even though we are conscious beings as well, there's a part of our selves that we're still driven by the primal, which is, I need to know I'm safe here. I need to know that my environment is okay, not only physically, right? But in terms of, I'm going to be able to have food. I'm going to be able to care for my children. And you brought up the emotional piece too. So I encourage you to really think about those two parts of your relationship. And with some couples, I wouldn't say all that we work with, finances has been a topic lately, as in they don't have maybe the structure or the conversations, the clarity around finances. And it creates, especially for women, this sense of concern, of fear. So maybe that's an area to focus on. And then the other part, emotionally. Hey, do we need to create more safety for each other to open up? Going back to the friendship piece, right? If we're going to try and confide in each other and open up, then we need to focus on not being defensive with each other and not judging each other, right? I think that's a thing I notice with people over time is this person that you love starts to become this person that you judge. And really check in with yourself right now of like how much of either your responses or your thoughts are really focused with your partner on judging them rather than loving them.
I would actually even take this further. I just realized this. I would challenge all of us because, as you mentioned, you said this person that you love, then you can judge. Well, what was your sort of measurement of saying, I love them? Because it was probably only one of these 5 vital elements. So again, think if you were just attaching your feeling of love to only one of these areas, that's probably why you have this feeling of
uncertainty.
Yeah, I was thinking of wobble, but exactly, it's uncertain. And that's, I think, a big reason for us to have this topic is to really look at, have I been thinking of love and even feeling love in my marriage and my relationship from only one of these aspects?
Yeah.
Then it's like, wow, it makes a lot of sense. I could feel more uncertain because we haven't been focusing on, as we've covered, either passion, desire, friendship, or this safety and trust now.
A big place that you can create safety with each other is in how you respond to each other when you disagree, whether it's disagreeing on a decision or a way of thinking, or if it turns into a full-blown argument, for example. And I was messaging with a client just before we started recording, and I was reading, hey, here's what happened. And I said, we still need to work on how you two respond to each other when you disagree. Can you disagree and it not turn into hate or being hateful to each other or getting escalated and taking it out on each other? Like, disagree, but still create safety for each other. So before we go into these 2 things, I know that for a lot of you that probably hit home because we just get messages every single day about conflict and, how do we handle arguments better and how do we forgive and apologize to each other. So for those of you who are new to listening to our podcast, we know there's a lot of new listeners. Make sure you check out our Making Up and Moving Forward guide. If you haven't, the link is in the show notes. It's also thecouplesexperience.com/guide. You get instant access to this for $19, and it gives you step-by-step directions into how to repair after arguments or disagreements. And the repair is everything, you guys, so that you actually have it resolved. You really can move on. You're not dragging that emotional clutter into the future and it gets brought up. So go just grab our Making Up and Moving Forward guide. It is just a must-have. The next disagreement you have, you're able to pull it up, on your phone, or if you want to print it and be able to go through the steps to repair. It'll
give you a lot of confidence to be able to repair and then even have conflicts in the future, which will have you feel more safe and that you can trust your partner to hold those emotions for you. And I was just realizing this, it's only with this first 3, not these last 2. But if you don't have the feeling of safety and trust because you started to, let's say, judge or you were reacting to their emotions, you didn't handle conflict well, go backwards with that. You start to lose respect. As you lose respect, then you're starting to diminish the friendship element of love. And then take that further back. If you're losing the friendship element, are you going to be able to cultivate passion and desire with someone that you don't respect and you don't feel safe with?
That's right.
Absolutely not. So those 3 I just realized tied together that way. The last 2 are maybe not as correlated to those, but as foundational. So number 4 is shared experience. And to me, it's memories that you have together. It's that you have a shared life that's unlike anyone else. It's everything from adventure to sitting on the couch watching a movie. It can be, well, it is everything from the trivial, the daily routines of making dinners and playing on the ground with your kids, for example, to the trips together to other countries. So it is that feeling of no one else has lived or shared a life with you like this person that you're married to, you know, your partner. So this shared experience. And to me, when a couple doesn't feel emotionally connected over a period of time, to our point earlier, when they say, I love them, but I would say it's either often that they're talking about the safety or security. Like, I love them, meaning I feel safe and secure, but then probably all these other ones are out. Or I would say it is the shared experience. I love them, but I love them, meaning we have shared this life together. And that creates this feeling of love. We've had these experiences. We've done the mundane. We've had challenges. We've gone through it. We've had adventure. And no one else is going to have that with you. So, of course, that gives you a feeling of love towards this partner or to this person in this sense. And maybe for some of you in a season, like, that's the part that you're latched onto. Like, well, we have this shared experience. And so that's why I say I love them. But maybe you're missing a lot of these other parts.
Or they had shared experiences and they aren't focusing on that as much. You know, if you think about as your life becomes more complex, whether that's, you know, you are excelling in your careers or you decide to have kids, or maybe you need to also take care of other family members. So life becomes more complex. Then what often happens is there's less time given to each other. And look, there's a big difference between just being in the same space with each other.
Oh my gosh.
Versus creating an experience. And look, Aaron and I, we aren't like going on coffee dates every day, right? Like you and I, we don't have support locally with us right now. You know, family isn't present and we're kind of lacking on the babysitter situation currently. Don't worry, this is going to turn around. So my point is, this is a little brag moment for me. I'm just going to say it for a second. I think I'm good at choosing to create a shared experience with the quote unquote mundane. For example, when Sky wakes up, you know, I don't know what percentage, you know, if I get her, sometimes you get her, but we aren't just like. If we were
honest, I don't get her up hardly ever.
Well, the mornings.
I put her down to sleep. Exactly. I will say that.
We have our roles. Yeah. I like to get her up. Don't worry. Aaron is totally involved. He helps also, but I don't just get her and then kind of do my thing and then you're doing your thing and all right, we barely interact. No, it's like I come in with her into the room. Hey, Dad. Like, good morning. Right. And it's like, it's just the mundane. Oh, let's make breakfast. And we're like interacting and laughing and trying to smile. Okay, let's play on the ground. Now, we're not interacting every single moment, right? But we try to create these mini experiences with the mundane.
Wow.
And maybe that's the season that you're in, right? Maybe it's not going to Thailand together, which we did a few years ago.
Or Scotland, which we did a few years ago.
Right. Those were big shared experiences. And maybe you missed those times. And maybe you'll be back to those times again soon. Right now, at least in our season, our shared experiences are in going hiking today, right? Yeah. And her playing in the dirt and us talking, you know, on the hike and just that being a shared experience.
You know, it was great. I think we scheduled with 5 different friends this weekend.
We were social for sure.
And we're out and, you know, it's actually really genius that you brought this up. I had not thought of shared experience being created in your day to day, or that could just be out by just being in the same space and not creating experiences. I thought that was really insightful.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it really was. So let's do the last one. Number 5, commitment. And this is likely one that you have not heard of. And it comes a lot from like a personal development perspective. So let me lay this one out and then Jocelyn, you can fill in the gaps once again. So commitment to me is the most subtle part of love. Yet the part that will get you through any of the challenges, the struggles, the trials, the years, the mundane, all of that. So Is it the most important? I don't know, but it's subtle and very powerful. So you could think of this as your vows that you made when you got married, if those basically weren't throwaway statements.
I promise to love, honor, and cherish.
I'm sorry, your vows were throwaway primarily because they were just tradition. Like you just did that as an experience of your wedding, but you didn't actually commit to that. You did not commit. That was not commit love. You said some things and you probably meant it in the moment. That's the difference. Something you mean versus something you commit to. It's completely different.
Wow. That's
if
good.
we asked a couple that just got married within a couple of weeks, what were your vows? Literally, no idea. Hey, have you been keeping to your vows that you just said like a week ago? Oh, probably. You have no idea, right?
What about a year later?
Because you didn't commit to it. So, of course, you have no structure to actually measure whether you've been keeping it. So it's a sound good. Sorry to everyone.
Oh, boy.
If your vows were actually something you committed to, you would be present to it every day. And that really is the point of this. It's your promise. It's your actual commitment to show up for your partner and the future you are creating together. But that commitment is not just a future thing. I wanted to say this. I want to make this distinction. It is your word. It's your future creation together, but it doesn't live out there because it's not something you're doing in the future. It's something you are doing now. Your commitment to a future is what gives you your way of being. It's your way of acting. It's how you show up. It drives your thoughts, your emotions, your attitude, your actions, and your results. It all comes from what you're actually committed to. And we lose that. We lose that over time. And a vow, I'm sorry, is not this commitment. It is not what you're present to. It's not what you wake up and say, here's how I'm going to be towards my partner. Here's how I commit to acting and showing them love, and then letting that, again, drive your whole being towards them.
That's good. I'm just like fired. I'm just like, let's go from that. Yeah, when you were saying all of that, I was just hearing the word over and over again, like a resilience. And like, so the commitment, it takes resilience, because going to the title of this, right, there are going to be trials that show up. There are going to be harder seasons. And of course, hopefully some really happy ones too. But can you be resilient in the face of that? And can you bounce back? Here was the other word that came up for me, was like grace. Like, I think having a commitment to grace. Like,
Sure,
I'm
yeah.
so committed to being like in a thriving partnership with you, where you thrive and I thrive, that I'm willing to forgive the mistakes. I'm willing to forgive if there's an attitude, yesterday. I'm willing to forgive and have grace.
If there's a criticism that you say.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, are you saying criticism?
No, I would just been hearing that one
Yeah.
this past week, right? But that's exactly right on point with what you're saying. It's like your commitment to be love is going to then get expressed more in the moment for what's needed. If I'm committed to love and you're, throwing some criticisms my way and I just react, I'm not committed to love. I'm committed to being right. I'm committed to defending myself.
But I think the main thing I'm trying to get across is a commitment to forgive, a commitment to let yesterday be yesterday, a commitment to have compassion. And I really noticed just human beings in general, and of course, especially in marriage, but I just noticed, and we talked about this over the last few days, humans are really struggling to like have compassion for each other's humanity. And so I think that in this commitment piece, it is like, I want us to thrive more than I want to be right. I want us to thrive, and therefore I'm willing to forgive yesterday. And just continuing to choose each other and to move forward. So I think commitment is very multidimensional, and there's a lot in there of what that can mean.
As you were talking, I was trying to think of the term from the personal development course that we did, and I actually remembered it. Speech act. So a speech act is actually language. It's words that actually drive you forward. It actually drives you to act. And commitment is a speech act.
I remember a few of them. There's like, I promise, I commit.
Yeah, exactly.
I will, I choose.
It is a declaration of who you're being, and then that drives your action. So really, all of these put together, you have passion and desire, you have friendship, safety and trust, shared experience. all of that creates that part of feeling of love.
Mm-hmm.
What's different about commitment is it's not a feeling you have first.
Mm-hmm.
It's what you have to link to have love in the moments you don't feel it. You will have times you don't feel loved. You don't feel like being loving. And this is where you have to step up. You have to raise your standards. And in the face of all that, the challenges, the trials, how you feel, you have to be your commitment. You have to declare yourself forward. And then you could probably step back into creating a shared experience or taking the next step to ensure trust and safety, or to build the respect and the friendship back, or even to take the steps to uncover what passion and desire would be. In a sense, it all has to come from the fifth element, which is your commitment to love.
Yes. And for those of you listening, don't let this be just an episode you heard and then you forget about it. These can make a profound difference in your relationship. So maybe re-listen to this one, or take a note and actually say, you know what, I'm going to focus this week on friendship, right? Maybe you take a week for the next 5 weeks and say, hey, this week, let's talk about this one and focus on this one, and then continue on. I mean, these can make a big difference. And if this resonates with you and you enjoy our podcast, would you go ahead and give it 5 stars on whichever platform you're listening on? That makes a big difference. We're actually recording after we put our baby girl down for bed, and we're committed to you guys, and we want to show up for you and add value to your lives. And a small way that you can say thank you is by rating it on the platform, and maybe write a sentence or two so that we can read that. We are so grateful for you all. Please stay connected. Message us on social media if you enjoyed this, and make sure you get the Making Up and Moving Forward guide as well, which is linked in the show notes. We love you guys, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.